Okay, we're joined by WIAA Board of Control President Jim Smasel. And Jim, I guess, what did we learn today at the WIAA area meeting, annual meeting, as far as, what would you say was the most interesting thing that you got out of what the delegates and the votes and all the things that happened here today?
I think the thing that comes to mind, especially this year more so maybe than others, is that this is a democratic process and it works. We had some really close votes. We had some amendments to the amendment. We had some school district generated things that went through the committee process and ultimately got passed. So I think overall, I think this was an opportunity for democracy to be into play, and people were heard. So I think that's what first and foremost comes out of my mind. I think secondly, I was a little bit, I thought it was interesting how close the vote was with the code of conduct. I think that as an administrator and previously an athletic director that dealt a lot with code violations, there is no bigger issue that tears the fabric of your high school apart than trying to deal with code violations and suspending kids from games or for a season. And I think that maybe there is a time that there might be a uniformity that needs to be had across the state, which I don't know that I thought existed a couple of years ago.
Sure.
So,
would 20% have passed had it not been amended?
You know, that's an interesting question, and I don't know that we were quite there yet. I think this is one of these things like the soccer issue.
Sure.
Soccer came before us, what, 3, 4, 5 times now, and finally it got passed.
Right.
I think the awareness has been generated. I think the table's been set, and now I think it's going to probably come back either next year or the year after, and more than likely will pass with some uniformity because now there's a greater awareness.
Does soccer getting summer contact, does that kind of open the door? There were a lot of amendments that could have been before this group about in-season, out of school, or in-season same sport participation, out of season, but yet in the school year things. It seems like everybody wants more and more liberalization of abilities to compete and participate. Do you see more of that coming this way?
I think that we're at... See you there.
Good job.
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think you have coaches that are educators, and whether or not they work in the school system, they're still educators, and they understand that kids need to be kids, and that they cannot continue to ask more and more and develop more and more of a season or expectations throughout the course of a whole year. But yet, on the other hand, they also have this internal motivational system to try to be competitive and keep up with the school districts and the people next to them. So I think those competing forces are always going to be at work. And I think ultimately we have to decide what high school sports are, because we cannot keep up with AAU and we cannot keep up with sport programs that don't have those rules. And if they can go year-round and they can be asking as much commitment as they absolutely want from these people, do we necessarily want to follow in those footsteps? Do we want to try to compete with that? I don't think we can. So we have to relegate ourselves to the fact that this is our niche. This is why we exist. As Dave said earlier about, we're the only country in the world that has high school sports. Why do we do that? It's because it brings the community together. It gives people a reason to bond and to come together, and that's a human trait that we all need.
Sure. Well, it was an interesting meeting. A lot on the plates, a lot for people to think about. I'm sure their minds were filled as they left here. It should be an interesting next school year.
It certainly will. It's not that the world's not getting less complicated. That's for sure.
All right. Well, Jim, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Rob.